Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess Podcast. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Pilates Goddess Podcast. It is your host, Lynda Lippin. And I have to say that I'm really excited about today's interview. I was basically introduced to Lynda Steele via LinkedIn. And I am so thrilled, actually, that I was introduced to her because we have a lot of things in common and a lot of similarities. But Lynda has taken them, and we're both Lyndas. She's a Lynda with an I, I'm a Lynda with a Y. And she has kind of taken a similar background to mine and taken it in an extraordinarily creative direction. So Lynda Steele is a creative, passionate, and dedicated individual determined to improve the lives of others through safe, efficient fitness. She believes that it's small goals and lifestyle changes that can grow into massive accomplishments, partly because she did that in her own life. Lynda has been successfully helping clients reach health and fitness goals by putting their bodies in a state where they are no longer dependent on blood pressure, cholesterol, or antidepressant medications. And she has committed herself to the improvement of her clients' overall health while constantly researching, as I do, and kind of being on the forefront of the latest equipment, new ways of training, new nutritional information. She cares about her clients and is thrilled to see their transformations. She has been a certified elite trainer, nutrition expert, exercise therapist, and senior fitness expert for over 18 years. And this, of course, has given her many opportunities. She has spoken at the popular event, The Best You, for various health and wellness programs at companies such as Canon, Otokampu, Potash, AJ Gallagher, Pampered Chef, Vistex, Grunt Style, Alpha Outpost, and Bally's Total Fitness. That's a phrase I haven't said in a very, very long time as we date ourselves, Lynda. And she now owns her own gym in Chicago. And in her spare time, because having, 3 kids and running her business is, not enough. She's a professional model and has been approached by numerous photographers and corporations to use her images to represent their companies and products. And she just wrote a book. So her new book, Nerves of Steel, is actually a great story. I highly encourage everybody to buy it and read it if you want a great background on how somebody can go from times of intense trauma as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult, and get through that and become a successful, happy human being. You should read Lynda Steele's book, Nerves of Steel. So welcome, Lynda.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynda. I appreciate you, that intro. My gosh, that was fantastic. And I couldn't have said it better myself.
Don't you love hearing people intro you? I do. I'm
I
always
do.
like, really?
I'm very
That's
humbled.
me? I did all that?
Wow. That sounds very exhausting.
It does, yes. But, I kind of wanted to start off with the fact that you are kind of like this beacon of hope for a lot of women in the world. Who really feel like they need to get their shit together, and really get moving forward. And so many of us come from a background of childhood trauma. I mean, I was adopted. My adoptive parents were mentally ill. My mother was bipolar.
Wow.
My parents considered it to be an appropriate family activity to drive to Atlantic City. When I was like, seriously, 10 and 11 and 12, they would go into the casinos. They would hand me money and send me to the boardwalk to go to the arcades. I'm lucky I wasn't human trafficked. I mean, seriously, like now that I know the stuff that happens to young girls by themselves on the boardwalk,
Oh my gosh. Right.
But they were like, she's street smart, she's savvy, she'll be just fine. And I was, and
Mhm.
I am, but I do think that having to try to take control of everything around us and ourselves as kids really does lead us to a place of kind of brain scrambling. We're not always sure what to do and where to go. But we also become really highly independent because we realize that asking other people for help isn't always going to be useful.
Yeah, so true. You can only
Yeah.
count on yourself. I've always felt that. I've always
Right.
felt that. I've always felt like if you want to get something done the right way, you have to do it yourself.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of the beginning of your book, how growing up in the situation you grew up in, and I'll let you explain that because you'll do it better than I do. And then, having your kids, being with a husband who was a gambling addict, and an alcoholic, kind of led you to where you are today.
Sure. So, growing up, I grew up in a household of divorced parents. And, I mentioned it in my book, first thing, I don't regret that. I don't have any ill feelings toward my parents getting divorced. They divorced when I was very young. I was 2 years old. I don't have one recollection of them being together. So that didn't affect me. What affected me was after my mother married the man that she dated for years, who I loved during the dating stage. She married him, and there was a series. There was an event that occurred when I was 9 years old, which is in my book. I won't divulge that, but an event happened when I was 9 years old, and that changed the entire course of the rest of my years with him. And it was a very cold home environment. I was ignored. There was never an acknowledgement of me in the room. If there was, it was by a dirty look. And at that young, impressionable age, that really matters, and it really took a lot out of my self-worth and my self-esteem. And I wasn't one of these shy kids who went into a corner because of it. I was one of those bratty kids that you can tell, like, wow, that kid doesn't get enough attention at home kind of kid. I was the class clown. I was the one always getting in trouble in study hall because I couldn't stop laughing. I was that kid. Mm-hmm. So, I wound up then leaving my home as soon as I could. I was 17 years old, already looking for my own apartments, and moved out when I was 18. Wound up dating a man who, at the time, we had a great time together because we were 19 and 20 years old, and we were doing what 19 and 20-year-olds do. And then as we built our relationship, we had children very young. As we built our relationship, I grew up because, I was a mom and I had to, and he stayed like 19 or 20 years old, it seemed to me. And he was doing what 19 and 20-year-olds do, even when we were in our late 20s and early 30s. And as you mentioned, that involved a lot of gambling, a lot of drinking, a lot of me trying to scramble, clipping coupons to, put food on the table, and trying to manage my home life and make sure that, we didn't lose our home while he was out. And I always use this example, putting dollar bills in strippers' panties. I was home clipping coupons to save the same amount of money that he was giving away. And it was, but he was the type that would buy drinks, rounds of drinks for everyone at the bar. And everybody loved him. He was a great, great man. But at home, we were really suffering. And it wasn't until I started to really put myself first, which was getting into a workout program, starting to eat clean, and starting to get my well-being in order, that I was able to make some really good, sound decisions. And I knew that it was time to cut ties with him if I wanted any kind of future for my children and myself. It was a very, very difficult time for me because I didn't have a whole lot of support. But I did it anyway because I knew right from wrong, and I had to do it. And I did it because I knew that for my kids' future, if not my own.
Have you always wanted to invest in real estate, but find you lack the time to commit to finding great deals, financing those deals, and even managing those deals to their highest potential? The Passive Real Estate Strategies podcast teaches investors how to take passive roles in partnerships with expert operators to multiply your wealth, secure high-level tax advantages, and build your passive portfolio. Check out our show now through the link in the show notes.
Right. And, I hear this a lot from a lot of my clients, from myself, that it's kind of that moment when you decide that you can at least be in charge of yourself. You can at least be in charge of what you're doing, of how you're doing it, of how you're taking care of yourself. And then other people start to notice that, and you start to kind of follow your example a little bit. I find it interesting that you talk in the book about how when you started hanging out a little more with the more kind of professional workout crew, that you realized that kind of the way you were eating and the way you were working out was probably not necessarily the best way. But what I find interesting is that you didn't judge yourself for that. You said, oh, well, how was I supposed to know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that a lot of us who get into health and fitness coaching and fitness training or Pilates training. I'm also a certified personal trainer. I do kettlebells, I do TRX, I do all the things.
Oh, great.
That we get into that partly because we want to serve as that kind of example to other women. And, I'm going to bet that the majority of your clientele is women.
It's funny. In the beginning, it was women. And now that I'm a little bit more experienced, it's about 50-50. A lot of men come to me because men are embarrassed. Men who are out of shape are sometimes embarrassed to work out with a male trainer, because you walk into a gym and, male trainers are all, really, jacked and in really great shape. And so when a man walks in and sees that, they're a little bit intimidated, a little embarrassed. So they feel like they would be less embarrassed working with a female trainer. So I do have my clientele now is about 50-50.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And you know what I get with that? Right now we're in this era of women empowering women and women, women of small businesses and so forth. And I'm all about that. But what we don't know is that there are a lot of men out there who suffer from the same insecurities that women suffer for. Women, we have a hard time at work sometimes because we're overlooked for positions, and there's competition, and our pay isn't always, what that equal of a man. But men have the same problems. They're also overlooked for positions that they feel that they deserve, that they've worked for and earned. They also have the same kind of competitive situations going on when they're competing for the next level of their career. They have the same situations in their relationships. They have the same insecurities. It's very, very similar. And so I'm all about women encouraging women, but because I see it from a male's perspective, a lot of people don't understand that men have a lot of the same fears and insecurities that women do. They're just not allowed to talk about it. It's embarrassing for them.
Right. Which actually makes it a lot harder. And it's kind of, I think it becomes not talking about it from a different place. I find that, a lot of times women, we just don't want to talk about it because we just want to get on with our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In fact, many times we're encouraged to talk about it and kind of dive through it. And I think sometimes we're just like, we don't want to.
Right.
I'd rather not, thank you. And I'd rather just move forward.
Yeah.
Although, of course, we also know that at some point it is important to bring, stuff out and make stuff public. What I had, which was very interesting, is that my mother always struggled with her weight, always. So she was consistently like early Weight Watchers, Overeaters Anonymous, Atkins, you name it. And she would always bring me to her meetings. And so, of course, they would pretend like I was, coming in as part of the group. Okay. So they would do the weigh-in and they would hand me the little diet pamphlets. Now, Lynda, I've looked at actual photographs of myself at those ages, and I was not overweight.
So for them to hand
but
you
I thought I was. But I thought I was because of being put in that milieu and being consistently treated as if I was overweight. And even today, I have pretty bad body dysmorphia in that I can't really tell what size I am. No matter how small I am, no matter how big I am, I always look the same to myself. I can tell the difference in a photo. So what my husband will often do is take a photo of me and say, look, and I'm like,
that's smart.
Right? Because
I love that idea. A lot of people in our industry have body dysmorphia issues.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Even I do.
Yeah. And it's something that people don't talk about a lot, which is interesting. Although, if you've been following any of the Washington Post reporting on bodybuilding, on competitive bodybuilding and the situations for both men and women, but especially women getting taken advantage of and, being put into extraordinarily unhealthy positions. I remember about maybe 10 years ago, Tom Venuto came out with a book on health and fitness for the general population. And one of the things he said in the book, which I completely disagreed with, and he and I had a back and forth about it, was that people should look at bodybuilders to follow how to eat because they're healthy.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know, man. Most of the competitive bodybuilders I know are drinking Epsom salts, are dehydrating themselves, are taking off-label medications that are coming from South America.
Right. Well, when you're
all kinds of stuff going on.
When you're preparing for a show, what goes on those last, 2 to 6 weeks prior to show day is not anything that I recommend either. And I think most bodybuilders, people who do shows, they can't disagree with that notion. I mean, I have to agree with you about that. The extremes, when you start talking extremes, that's when things start getting a little iffy. Your body likes a balance. That's what your body likes. It likes a balance. So when we go to these extremes, that's when things start getting a little bit out of hand, and it's hard. You can't sustain that. Your body can't sustain that long term.
Right. And then it actually becomes part of the trauma. It becomes another piece of the trauma story, because when you think about where you have to come from in terms of mindset in order to put yourself through that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of, Victoria's Secret models have told the same stories, right? About prepping for the big show and all of those things.
Right.
I find that, so many of my clients over the years want the magic pill, right? Everyone just wants that magic workout or that magic diet or that magic way of eating. I've watched clients get into CrossFit, love it, and end up with rhabdo or end up with, back issues. I mean, seriously, like well-educated high-income human beings who listen to the person at the gym and end up in the hospital getting,
Right.
with kidney issues.
Right.
I've watched people get gout, right, from keto.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then my favorite is always paleo. That's always my favorite because there are so many created paleo things, right?
I know.
And
Yeah.
I was like, and I'm always like, do you really think they were eating that mashed up like thing in a ball that you've like manufactured and put in a bag for people to buy and call it keto, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
call it a paleo? Like,
Right.
I don't understand. And why hold on to that moment in our evolution too?
That's so true. And when I work with clients, I'm a fitness expert, but I'm also a nutrition expert. I've been working with people's diets again for almost as long as I've been a career trainer. And again, I always put their body into a balance. I tell them, I want you to eat this percentage of carbohydrates, this percentage of protein, this percentage of fat. In conjunction with the 3-day-a-week workout, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to lose about 2 pounds a week. It's a very
Right.
It's a very structured program that I work with. And everyone who's followed it has 100% of the time had great results. Even if they're dealing with an autoimmune disease, they still have success because my program addresses, just about everything. And it never fails, though. People get bored. They don't, they get tired of eating healthy, chicken and broccoli or whatever it is. I always use it as an example, but they get tired of it. And so I've had clients come to me after years of working with me and they'll ask me, hey, I'm thinking about doing Jenny Craig. What do you think about Jenny Craig? And I'm always like, oh my gosh. My answer is always, you pay me thousands of dollars. You've paid me thousands of dollars over time. If there was a better way, I would have given it to you by now. I make my money off of your success. So I'm going to give you the best way to do it all because I've already researched all the best. So it is funny to me how when people come to me, and I'm sure that you get the same thing with all these, the fad diets, some of them are going to work for you temporarily, but I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking what is sustainable? What can you do long term? You can eat regular food long term. You can't eat this bagged stuff, like you said. Your body can't do those things long term. You have to have a balance.
Right. And I mean, I find it's very interesting to me. Like if you walk into Whole Foods now, of course you walk into produce, right? Bountiful, produce everywhere, flowers and produce. That's how the whole front of the store is set up.
Lots of colors.
But then once you get through produce, the very next section is supplement.
Yeah.
You get supplement before you get any real food in the store as you're walking through.
That's interesting. I never really looked at it like that, but you're right.
Walls of protein powder, walls of, branched chain aminos, walls of pre and post workout, except they're natural versions because, they're at Whole Foods. Refrigerator cases full of things. And I'm just like, okay, this is interesting that we're getting fruits and veggies, and then we're just getting protein powder before we even get to the eggs and the milk and the and the meat.
Right.
And I think that kind of speaks to like where a lot of people are today, where, it's like somehow we've gotten scared to like eat meat, but not to drink protein powder.
There are plenty of times when a client will ask me if I recommend a protein supplement for them. It's only because I can't get them to eat enough food.
Right.
And, whether it be because their job is so demanding, they don't have time to eat, or they've trained themselves to not eat. So I'm trying to, increase their caloric intake. And so I'll say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to drink one of these shakes a day, along with, and is that in place of my lunch? No, it's in addition to your lunch. You're already not eating enough. I need you to eat food. I need you to like real food. And I think it's because maybe we haven't learned enough about the difference between absorption and digestion. Your body needs both. And I have no problem with some supplements, although now there's so many on the market. I don't even know. I stopped researching them years ago because I just can't. I mean, there's just so many. You can't keep up with it. So I have a couple favorites that I like for specific reasons. And I will try to explain the importance of both absorption and digestion. Absorption is great. If you drink a protein shake, typically about, almost all of it, almost 100% of it is going to be absorbed by the nutritional walls. So that means, or the intestinal walls, which means that your body is going to get all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that are in this particular product, and it's going to use it. The problem is your body has to also know how to digest food. That digestion process is very important. It's important for burning calories. It's important for body function. Your body needs both. So, but you can get it, your body is going to absorb, through digestion as well. So it's not like you have to drink protein shakes. But if you're not getting enough nutrients in the way of food, I don't have a problem with, supplementing, but not replacing. I don't like the idea of replacing food with that.
Right. But, we've been raised in a culture that just keeps telling us to eat less, right?
I know.
Eat less. Just keep eating less. Move more, eat less. Move more, eat less. That's all we've heard for like decades and decades.
Forever.
And at the end, really at the end of the day, that if that worked, we wouldn't need to be doing what we do. Like we wouldn't have jobs because everybody would just be fine. But it turns out that doesn't really work either. You eat too little for too long, your body just goes into starvation mode. Yep.
All of my overweight clients, well, not all, but most, probably 95% of my overweight clients are undereaters. And that's why they're overweight.
Yes. I talk to, my clients tend to be women over 50, osteoporosis or chronic pain. And so a lot of them, have never eaten very, very well. And I remember one of my clients a few weeks ago was talking about, wanting to lose the extra 5 pounds that she had gained on vacation. And she looked at me, and she tends to follow Weight Watchers, which works for her, which is fine. But she goes, I think I might need to go under 1,200 calories a day. And I just looked at her and I was like, absolutely not. There was no adult human who can survive on less than 1,200 calories a day.
You're right. Our organs need that. That's the minimum for our organs to survive, to function.
Right. And, I'm amazed. I feel like over the years, we've just heard these like random numbers. It just sounds like people pull them out of their ass, right? Like, no, you should eat this and you should eat that. I'm like, really? You just have no idea really what you're talking about. Yep. Sometimes I look at my clients and I'm like, take what you weigh and add a 0 to the end. And that within reason, that's going to be a basic number of calories that's going to sustain you.
Right. That's actually not a bad rule of thumb.
Yeah. It's I can't tell you that I got that myself. I got that from actually a woman named Paula Bowers, who does weight loss for women over 50. That's her thing. But she, after years of just telling people to go and download 3 different calorie counters and plug in the info and then average it out.
Yeah.
As she kept doing that over thousands and thousands of times, she was like, it pretty much comes down to your body weight with a 0 at the end of it.
That's fantastic.
If you just go a little bit below that, you'll lose weight. If you go above that, you'll gain weight. If you eat that, you'll just kind of stay where you are.
Right. I usually, when it comes to recommending grams of protein, I usually do a 1-to-1, 1 gram of protein per body weight. Or at least lean mass, body weight.
Yeah.
So that's a good rule of thumb also.
Yeah. And I think, we also, many of my clients discount the importance of carbs. They also forget sometimes that produce is carbs. Like
Mhm.
everyone's like, oh, I can't eat bread. And I'm like, well, like apples and salads are carbs
Yeah.
too. And you eat those, and we need them because they've got prebiotics and they've got fiber and they've got, things that the body needs,
Mhm.
micronutrients. We
Mhm.
talk a lot about macronutrients. We don't always talk a lot about micronutrients.
Right,
And I
right.
find that, once again, for us as fitness professionals, it becomes about trying to kind of allow people to have some freedom and not
Mhm.
just simply micro control everything,
Right.
because the micro control, I think, is where we really kick ourselves.
Yeah, well, people can get really obsessed with things, and you start to lose the big picture. And, again, the balance, the body needs a balance. And, there are a lot of things like you said, everyone's like, carbs, carbs, carbs. I have to cut my carbs out. But that's where the vitamins sit. Like you said, all of the fruits and vegetables, that's where the
Right.
vitamins, most of the vitamins sit.
I also like the fact that you do a 3-day-a-week workout schedule and not an everyday or a 6-day or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like. Because, once again, anyone who has grown up in any trauma will grab onto that. Oh, so I just have to exercise all the time.
Yes.
And then
Ugh.
we get the rhabdo and the overuse and and then people end up more injured than they were before
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
even come in, or they just start to really judge themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't do it today, and what's going to happen? And
It's too easy to fail when you put those types of expectations on yourself, and you put those kinds of standards. It's really easy to seem like you're failing. And because life happens. You may have a meeting after work that you have to stay for, and then, oh my gosh, you're going to miss your workout. Or you may have a sick child at home, and you're going to miss your workout, or something's going to go, the weather's bad and you can't get there. So when you miss, you automatically think, oh, I failed, that didn't go well. But it doesn't have to be that way. 3 days a week, that's very reasonable. Your body needs that rest of 4 days. And if you do 4 days a week, fine, but you need to really rest those days. You don't build muscle in the gym, you build muscle on your off days. Those days that you're recovering, rest, recover, and building, those are the important days. And
right. And that's where sleep becomes important too,
yes,
right?
and we're
Because
just
that's
learning
when
about
our
sleep.
body is detoxing.
Mm-hmm. We're just learning about sleep over the last, maybe 5-7 years, is when they're finally telling us, oh my gosh, you need to get all this sleep. I don't recall hearing about that way back when. Do you?
No, I don't.
No, me neither. And I have noticed, now that I have forced myself to get more sleep, I notice a huge difference in my day, a difference in my mood, a difference in my production, a difference in me being able to put things together in my head. There's a much better connection between doing something and completing a task. There's so many things that come with the along with the idea of sleeping more or better, in my
Right.
experience.
Definitely. That was one of the big lessons for me during the pandemic. At the beginning, was that suddenly, when I wasn't like getting up at 5 and dragging myself into the studio to see clients at 7 a.m., but was working from home, I changed my schedule
Wasn't that
so I can
wonderful?
get some sleep. And I finally started to feel, so much better. And I was like, okay, thank you.
And this I believe this goes back to our childhood trauma. We always feel like we need to be productive. We always feel like we need to be moving ahead. If we're not moving ahead, we're falling behind.
Right.
That mentality comes along with childhood trauma. That's something that I've really noticed with people who I talk with. I have a new personality every hour on my schedule. And, we are definitely not alone with this trauma that we've experienced throughout our lives. And we tend to do things to keep ourselves so extra busy. I don't know if it's because we don't want to have to think about what's really bothering us, or we don't want to have to address it. So we make ourselves so extra busy. But that just becomes part of our personality. We're go-getters. We are over the top with our expectations of ourselves, and we're just extremely productive. But during that pandemic, when we didn't really have the option of being so productive, it forced us to kind of calm down a little bit. And it felt good, didn't it?
It did. It really did. And I continued it.
So did I.
I continued that.
I don't take a client before 8 a.m. anymore. I used to be at the gym 5, 6 a.m. Not anymore.
Yeah. I'm like, it's dark out. What are you talking about?
Right.
Who gets up then?
I want to be home. I want to enjoy my morning. I want to play with my dog a little bit if I want to. I want to, put my laundry away. I used to wake up, shower, run out the door. I didn't have time to think about anything else. And now I just ease into my day. It's so much better for everybody.
Yes. Yes. Well, Lynda, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. Seriously.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Oh,
you're welcome. Now, where can people best get in touch with you?
Best get in touch with me. I have an email that's pretty easy to remember. Lynda at LyndaSteeleWellness.com.
I'm also on Steele with an E, just
with an E at the end. Yep. Thanks for reminding me. Yes. Lynda Steele, Steele. Lynda Steele Wellness. Email's probably the best, but I'm also on every different social media handle out there, from LinkedIn to YouTube to Instagram. And those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Sometimes, though, if you're going to message me on Instagram, I may not respond because I don't always see the messages that go into if it's somebody that I'm not following. So, but I do check my LinkedIn messages. So those are
okay, great. So email or LinkedIn if you would like to get in touch with Lynda for personal training, for nutrition advice, for any kind of coaching, talk about the book. Your book is great. And I think anyone who has been, especially any of us who have, had our own experience of childhood trauma, and maybe are still working through it, maybe haven't gotten to the, to the other side, although there's no true other side. I think Lynda will agree with me on this, and that shit comes back all the time. You're like, I thought I was over that. And then there it is. Yep. So get Nerves of Steel. It's at Amazon.
Yep.
I will put a link to it in the show notes. I will, of course, also put a link to all of Lynda's social media and her website in the show notes, so that anyone who wants to get in touch can get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So have a great rest of your cold day in Chicago. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Lynda. Thanks again. Have a great day.
You too. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I know I did. If you're enjoying the show, please head on over to the Apple Podcast app or to Podchaser and leave a rating and a written review. I would really, really appreciate it. And it's kind of important. So thanks a lot. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.